We're live.
Okay. We are live. We've got a really, really deep, powerful topic tonight, or this morning, pardon me. So we want to give just a minute for a couple of people to jump on here. And while we're doing that, I'm going to make sure I get into the live stream to be able to see any comments or questions as we get into this. So let's see here. Let me get this to expand and we should be good to go. Okay. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
I'm doing really well this morning.
Good. We're here in our Thursday morning Blanchard Leadership live cast and excited to be with all of you this morning as we get an opportunity a little later in the week. We've got a lot of live casts on Facebook on Monday on our Mandino page where my dad kicks the week off with augmenting your week, like Mandino with the scrolls and everything. Be sure to subscribe to that. Check that out on the Mandino page.
8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time every Monday.
8 a.m. Mountain Time, so 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time, and sometimes super early in Hawaii that we're just jealous that people have to worry about Hawaii time. So, and then on Tuesday, I've got my power session that I do, which is a 45-minute to 1 hour coaching call for our Facebook audience. Powerful stuff there on at noon Mountain Time every Tuesday, and then we're back on here on Thursday. So excited to be with all of you today to be talking about some really important stuff. Sorry for the echo in the background. I'm just getting the live pulled up so we can see the comments. As my dad and I were talking this morning about what topic we wanted to cover, and we created this Blanchard Leadership Livecast because we wanted to give an opportunity for us to be able to chat through some of the things that are seeming to pop up with our clients pretty frequently, or what are some of the trends or themes that we're seeing. What's something that created a massive breakthrough for a company we're working with, or executive leaders that we're helping build their sales teams or their culture or whatever. Just a great platform to get on and connect with all of you and to be able to share what's really working out there and what's really mattering. Now, granted, we have the Habit Finder technology, which gives us an opportunity to get pretty deep. And so we're going to go there today, but we're going to do so with as much simplicity as we can. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder because the particular wording for today's topic came right from my dad, and it just hit me right in the heart in terms of being able to recognize how I felt it in my life, and immediately seeing in retrospect the number of my clients that this mentality has put such an incredibly limiting ceiling on what's possible for them in their lives. And this is on an unconscious level. A habit finder, it gives us an opportunity to be able to operate and measure and shift what's going on unconsciously, which means you're not conscious of it. And so to be able to go in there and measure that and get into that space just takes us to a whole nother level. And this is one of those more common than not unconscious stories that if we can learn to understand, learn to unpack it, and then actually build specific habits and principles and processes around it, because it's not just discovering it that gets rid of it, it's discovering and then being able to work through it productively. So with that, I'm going to hand things over to you, Dad, to set us up on today's topic about our birthright.
Thank you. For all of you who are watching this, we want you to take the Habit Finder profile. It's absolutely free, habitfinder.com. Go take it, because I'm going to reference some of the measurements this morning, and you're going to want to write the names down so that you can go look at them on your own Habit Finder and start this exploration. And I agree, Paul, that it doesn't solve the issue, but bringing it to the surface finally allows us to look at it. And this morning, our purpose is to help you look at it and give you a couple of first steps for dealing with it, because awareness of it is the first piece. This week, today is Thursday, and I've already dealt with this several times this week. That's why it's top of mind for this morning. And that is that sometimes in our lives, there are things unfinished, or there are things that have been done to us, or things that we may have done to someone else, or a mistake that we may have made, some not so serious, but in relationship to a belief system, yes, and some very serious. And the belief is that I can't get any bigger or better. I can't really change my life or circumstances. I'm really can't go any further because I have lost my birthright. I have lost my right to go there because of that. So those who are watching this morning, just reflect on this for a moment. Is there something that's happened in your life? Was there, maybe you didn't go to college, and maybe you're in a profession where everybody did. Maybe you didn't finish the college. Maybe you didn't get the graduate degree. Maybe as a teenager, you had some really rough times. Maybe as a child, you were molested. Maybe you were in a terrible relationship. Maybe you've violated your marriage vows. There could be lots of possibilities. Maybe you cheated on a tax return, whatever it might be. Just take a look at all of those things and see if there is something that subconsciously you've been saying to yourself, because of, I can't. Because in self-esteem, in the area called myself, there are 6 measurements. And we're seeing the first one increasingly out of balance. It's unconditional. The question really is, can you see your pricelessness and your uniqueness? And I asked a client this week because they believe in God. I said, how does God see you? And they said, unconditionally. I said, then why don't you see yourself unconditionally? And we got into a very rich conversation about what was creating this question where I'm putting conditions on my worth. I'm only worthy if I have this degree. I'm only worthy if I have this income. I'm only worthy if I didn't make these mistakes. I'm only worthy if this didn't happen to me. How could this happen to me if I were worthy? And so we begin to question our worth and our worthiness. Are you there? Take a look at your habit finder, myself, first measurement, unconditional. What's happening to it? And what might be creating that? Because most of the time, it's some expectation we had for our life and we did not meet it. Or we look at other people and everybody looks like they're without sin, they're without challenges, they look okay. So we bring our inner knowledge of ourselves to their outer appearance and we get to beat ourselves up. Or maybe the expectation wasn't met, so we question our own character. Sometimes we question our character because the expectation is perfection. Well, good luck. 50 billion people, you'd be the first one. And if you got there, your thought processes wouldn't let you celebrate because that was what was expected. No big deal. First out of 50 billion, that's what's expected.
Hey, Dad, I think it's really important to remember as you're going through this and people are hearing, especially if you're hearing this for the first time, where we go with scientific measurement in Habit Finder, we're not trying to treat the brain like a computer, because the way it creates feelings and emotions and personality and our reality is way beyond anything a computer could ever do. But it's so critical, as you and I remind each other all the time, that self-esteem, self-worth, it's not this ethereal, like, mist. It's not this mystical place where, because I feel people spend a lot of time in their self-esteem, which is the wrong direction to be focusing, to go inside versus going outside to other people. And they see it as this swamp of mucky, whatever, different things, or they see it as this magical force or energy in their life. It's a set of thought processes.
Set of thought processes.
That's all it is. Just
we say this, Paul. We say, if I said half the things to you that you allow these habits of thinking to say to you, could we still be friends?
No.
Self-esteem challenges, thank you, is simply dialogue. And is our dialogue validating us, or is our dialogue tearing us down? And is there there's lots of reasons. This morning we're zeroing in just on that one. I made a mistake. I didn't finish a requirement. I haven't lived perfectly. And because of that, I've got dialogue that says I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy of it. I'm not capable of it. I don't have character. I've got a character flaw. And then I might try to sacrifice my time, my energy, even my well-being. You and I talked about this morning. Robert De Niro character in The Mission. You know, he's a slaver. He's going out to the Guadana and capturing people with nets, and selling them. And his brother loves the same woman, and they get into a sword fight, and he kills his brother. And all of a sudden, he's in the church, fasting, not eating, just want his life to go away. And the priests decide to take him with them to go serve the Guadana. And the next scene, you see Robert De Niro with a giant net. And the net is filled with his helmets and his swords and his breastplates, all of the armor, is massive. And he's dragging this thing up the river. Then he drags it up the hill, and it's so beautifully filmed. The struggle to the top of the hill, and they finally get up there, and they're met by some of the people from the Guadana tribe. And one pulls out a knife because he knows this guy. This is the guy who maybe stole my brother or my son. And he walks over, and you think, this guy's going to slit his throat. And instead, he cuts the rope and releases all of that, and it falls down the mountain and into the water. Finally released the pain. I just keep thinking about how many of us are dragging around in our sack. This is the Chicago dream. If those of you have Today I Begin a New Life, if you don't get it, go to page 65 and read about the Chicago dream, where we're dragging all this stuff behind us. Well, we sometimes sentence ourselves to a belief we now have to sacrifice our time, our energy, and our well-being. We're in this prison paying for those mistakes. And sometimes we even get to a point where we start to wonder if this world would be better without us on it. That's who we want to talk to this morning.
You've shared some things that will just punch people in the face in a really powerful way. When I heard you and I were talking the other day, and you were clarifying that these thought processes, this noise in your head that's creating this ceiling of what's possible. So everything you're doing that you're pouring into yourself, into your personal development, into your business, is to get to the highest level of success possible. But we don't realize that a lot of us, because of our sabotaging dialogue, are just trying to get to the highest level of success possible within a limited game, because our dialogue won't let us think bigger. We're not worthy of having these big dreams. We're not worthy of creating greater success with an even larger scope. And one of the ways that it keeps us chained down most effectively is that it doesn't say you're an idiot, doesn't say you're not worthy. It says, I'm an idiot. I'm not worthy. It is one of the greatest gifts we have, that buffer between us and our thoughts, of that metacognition, to be able to recognize those are just thoughts. But it's so difficult to do, especially if we're fatigued and stressed, and anxiety and depression that comes from trying to create massive success in a tiny little box that our self-sabotaging dialogue creates, because we're born for so much more than that. Read Scroll 1 in The Greatest Sales in the World if you want to get a taste of some really poetic language around the success you were born into. Your birthright to success is laid out beautifully in that scroll, and poetically in that scroll. But it's so tough because it sounds like your own voice. And another challenge is some of the things that set the limitations on that box is, as you know, Dad, is stuff we experienced when we were much younger or in a different emotional space. And we can retrospectively go back to that experience and reconcile it based on our current awareness, our current emotional ability. But just because we reconcile it intellectually or consciously now based on our current ability doesn't mean that the wounds that were created because of our lack of emotional ability or context or maturity at that time go away. I'll give you a great example. Like I had my heart broken when I was pretty young. And it was so easy now to just go, oh, that was just puppy love. You were just 19, 20 years old. That wasn't really, you didn't have the big picture of life in mind. And so I can reconcile that in my conscious mind, but it doesn't necessarily remove the wounds and or the chains of what that actually felt like in the moment. In the moment, at that age, it felt like my life was completely falling apart, like traumatic. And we have an occasion, especially with past life experiences, painful ones, to play them down over time, but to miss the real lessons that are in the deep wounds of being able to get the most out of that lesson for how the you that was there, that actually experienced it, not how the you of today would experience it with your knowledge and understanding and emotional fortitude. I love A Wrinkle in Time movie that came out last year that my kids love, where it said one of the characters quoted someone saying that the wounds are where we let the light in. And just a beautiful opportunity to go, okay, so I'm aware of it, but it's still, I've still got this bag and it's super heavy back here. Oh, I got over it. I'm totally over it, except it's still attached to you. You know, you don't ever get over that stuff. And I think it'd be important to give yourself, for lack of a better term, the grace to realize that the you of today is not the you that actually experienced that. It's almost, it's being empathetic to your old self and going back and experiencing what that was like for the old you, so that the new you can really have those experiences engraved on your heart, which, as you've shared with me from Kevin Hall, that's character. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, thank you. Isn't that a great perspective, everyone who's listening to this? Have grace for the old you, the same way you have so much grace for other people. We're certainly more forgiving of others than we are of ourselves. Let's take them through one simple exercise this morning. If you know, and just be with this for a moment, do you know what it is? Do you know the mistake? And let's go with a mistake for this morning. Something you've done that if you could turn time back, you would change it. You would avoid it. It's hurt you. It's hurt other people. You just want to just take that experience and just hold it in your hands for a moment. So everybody just hold it right here. Because I remember in my dream, the Chicago dream, when I'm being in the care and keeping of a pedophile aged 3 through 5. That's the one I wrote about. The one I didn't write about were the mistakes. I just didn't care to share them. Hold those. What is yours? Just hold it for a moment. Take a look at it. And ask yourself this question. How long have I allowed this to make me play small? How long have I allowed this to make me play small? How long have I looked at this as the reason for why I'm not embracing my natural genius and my gifting? And then ask this question. Is anybody else? Paul said it earlier. We look inside for solutions. We can't go deep enough inside to find them. We find them when we move outside ourselves. Is anybody else suffering from a similar wound? It's happened. You can't change the past, but you can choose to use this experience as a rich resource. And the more painful it was, the more difficult it was, the more challenging it was, the more impactful it was, the more powerful it can be in this use. Is anybody else suffering from a similar wound? The answer is clearly yes. Yes. Then let's take this, and today, let's get it out of our sack we've been dragging around, and let's put it in our heart. And its sole purpose going forward from this moment in time is to listen differently to another person. Now, I have a belief system. I turn the guilt, the shame, the burden over to my Lord and Savior. I'm not ashamed of that belief. And he just gladly takes it. And most of us who have these limiting challenges believe that God is the one putting the damper on us. God doesn't put dampers on us. Give it to him. He'll take it. And then take the experience, put it in your heart, and use it from this day forward to serve people. You will hear things nobody else hears. You'll feel things nobody else is feeling. You'll see things nobody else sees. You'll ask questions nobody else will ask. And you will bless life after life after life after life. And there can finally be, instead of a burden, purpose. There can be purpose come out of this. There can be joy in the journey and much needed healing in your soul. And you'll discover that to break through the ceiling isn't some seminar. It's a shift from yourself to serving. You did a beautiful podcast on sales is an exchange of value. For an example, we start to learn that the more people we serve, the more successful we become. And it's lasting and it's rich. And what you have done that has held you back, there's no God in heaven, there's no force for good who would hold you back because of a mistake. That's you. That's your unhealthy dialogue assigning that voice to a being who would never do that. Never do that. Turn the pain, the shame, the guilt over to the God, your God, and then take the experience and use it empathetically to serve other people. And there can finally be that healing in your soul. And you begin to realize that the only limiting belief was yours. There was no outside force. This was not a force field from an outer being that's saying you can't break through this. It's of your own making. Did you make the mistake? Yeah. Question is it time to learn from it, move past it, and use it in service, purpose, joy, and healing? What would life be like? Let's just throw this out. We're about done. What would your life be like if from this day forward, you did not let that hold you back? You no longer use it as an excuse, a reason for not owning and fully maximizing your gifting. You didn't lose your birthright. Yes, setback. You learned a really good lesson. Now use it to serve people, and it will have purpose.
Okay, super fast lightning round because we're out of time, but we had a couple really good questions come through. Kim asked about, do you have any advice for helping children with this process from an early age, capturing thoughts and determining they are false? I have a kiddo that would not be able to be friends with himself. I can help him identify the thoughts, but he argues that they are true. The super fast response is you're going to want to understand intrinsic validation at a very deep level and understand what is likely a need to be right, which I talked a little bit about on the power session on Tuesday. And especially one of the greatest challenges to need to be right is with our kids, because the higher the good intentions, the more intense the good intentions, the harder it is to see where we're trying to fix and trying to get them to understand versus stepping into your child's world and allowing them to feel understood. One of parents' natural systemic fears in doing that is that if they step in to have the child feel understood, that the child will feel vindicated in the poor choices that they're making versus intrinsically validated, which gives them the capacity to become aware of them. And eventually, as I tell any parents that I coach with, getting to the point where your kids ask the most important question that they could ever ask in these kind of exchanges in life early on. And that's when they say, Mom, what do you think? Or Dad, what do you think? If they're asking you that, doesn't matter if it's every day or every once in a while, then you know you're showing up the way you're going to want to in terms of seeking to understand them rather than getting them to understand you, because getting them to understand you will help them. That's where we get lost in the mix of good intentions that are crappy communicators. And secondly, really quick, what if you don't know the experience or the mistake? Delaroy, one of my favorite quotes from Daniel Putnam is that man's number one tool for maintaining self-deception is being busy all the time. I've found that those who have a difficult time understanding their mistakes, and it's not about identifying what it exactly was as much as what it feels like, so you can identify that that isn't defining you, that is noise, that is your unhealthy dialogue, and you can choose to stay in creation as long as you can. And then if it knocks you out, get back there as quick as you can. Got the sun coming up as my alarm that we're done here.
Yeah, but let me throw something in because I've got to jump on a call. I've got a client waiting. You're looking for the mistake. You may not have one. For you, it may be something that was done to you, something that someone said to you that you still are playing through your subconscious mind and is validating why you should stay small. So we zeroed in on mistakes this morning, but don't zero in on them. If there isn't a big mistake somewhere along the way, you'd know of what I'm talking about if you've done that. If you don't know that, then and you're struggling with self-esteem, find out what voice is doing that. Was it a fifth grade teacher that told you you'd never succeed? Was it a parent who said you'll be worthless? What dialogue did you buy into and your subconscious keeps buying that keeps you small?
One of the top compensations for these kind of challenges, especially in the clients we work with who are drivers and I don't know what that could be. I'm just doing what I do. Have a very difficult time slowing down, quieting their mind, and getting out of the busyness. And they say, "Oh, I try that and I'm miserable." I'm just, well, because you haven't taken the time to learn that skill. And oftentimes that clutter, like the house example you given today at Beginning of Life, Dad, of everything spinning around and going crazy, is exactly what doesn't give us the opportunity to discover our own selves at a deeper level. So our time is up. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you next week for Augment Your Week on Monday at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. Power Sessions Tuesdays at noon Mountain Time. And then back here for the Blanchard Leadership Live Thursdays at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Take care.
Get your habit finder taken. Bring it with you to these sessions.
Yes.
Bring it with you. They'll be so much richer. Thanks,
all right.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.